keeping with its objective to build capacity for disaster risk management, the Civil Defense Commission, CDC, in collaboration with ExxonMobil, rolled out the Voluntary Emergency Response Team VERT program in March 2019. The VERT program will be executed over a one-year period and will see the volunteers being trained in a number of areas. Some of these include damage assessment and needs analysis, community-based disaster risk management, first aid emergency medical response, oil spill response, natural hazards and disaster risk management, among others. On this InfoHub Extended, we take a look at the journey of the VERTs thus far.
Are you ready to embark on a truly epic adventure to an undiscovered corner of South America, where some of the most spectacular natural attractions are unveiled within a beautifully diverse landscape? From the wetlands and savannas to the ancient mountains, magnificent waterways and lush enriching rainforest would provide a vast playground for some of the most exotic and breathtaking creatures on the planet, including many of the world's giant species. This untouched land of mystery and wonder serves up an exclusive experience for travelers. So are you ready for a new, awe-inspiring adventure? Welcome back to nature. Welcome to Guyana.
The VERT program commenced on March 15 when 39 participants traveled to Camp Madwini to Mary, where they were involved in several activities, including team-building exercises. They were also given an overview of the mission of the CDC, as well as the basic concepts of community-based disaster risk management and key terminologies. On March 17, Director General of the CDC, Lieutenant Colonel Kester Craig, officially launched the program.
Disaster risk management is multidisciplinary and requires skills from a wide range of professional individuals. As such, a significant extent of disaster risk management is driven by people who are willing to volunteer and contribute to the social good, not only the social good of their community, but for the entire country. The Civil Defense Commission recognized that volunteers can play a critical role in the achievement of its mandates.
He emphasized that volunteers are the most important members of a disaster response team since they provide critical emergency response services and play a major role in rebuilding livelihoods and strengthening community resilience.
Volunteers, as was said before, are members of society and communities, are the ones that are in close contact with the hazards and all the issues that affect communities. They are also the ones that are best placed to identify hazards, to identify vulnerabilities, to identify coping capacities. But most importantly, volunteers are usually the first responders.
The Director General said the CDC recognizes the importance of volunteers and the gaps that exist both locally and regionally. The agency has partnered with several agencies such as the Guyana Defense Force, the University of Guyana, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, and U.S. oil giant ExxonMobil to design and implement the program. ExxonMobil's Director of Public and Government Affairs, Deidre Moe, expressed similar sentiments as Craig while emphasizing the role volunteers play in disaster risk management.
Volunteer citizens play such an important role in accident and disasters, providing that assistance to relief organizations such as the Civil Defense Commission in this case. When you're looking at your role and is so important. The community and national kind of objectives basically are benefiting from the work that you're doing.
Mo disclosed that in addition to contributing to the program financially, ExxonMobil will be utilizing their expertise on oil spill response to equip volunteers with the necessary skill set and knowledge. Lieutenant Colonel Craig noted Guyana is strategically positioned to render assistance and that the VERT program goes beyond basic training.
Emergency and disaster occur across the entire country. And you don't have one set of body or one force that could respond to emergency across the country. So we decided to form the Volunteer Corps and expand it to all 10 administrative regions. So we have persons in each region that are trained in disaster management and damage assessment or the warning system that support the regional disaster risk management system. But this particular program, which is called the Volunteer Emergency Response Team Program, it's more of an advanced program where volunteers will be trained in detailed disaster risk management, primarily to support the communities, support the regions nationally, but more importantly to support the Caribbean, responding to hurricanes, responding to tsunamis in the islands that are usually affected every year.
Following the official launch, the Civil Defense Commission and the University of Guyana signed an agreement which will see volunteers from the VERT program receiving an Introduction to Disaster Risk Management certificate upon completion of the program. The agreement was inked by Lieutenant Colonel Kester Craig and Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Engagement, University of Guyana Professor Michael Scott. In brief remarks, Professor Scott said the partnership is part of the sensitizing, deepening, and widening of the volunteer footprint in Guyana for resilient communities.
I want to say that, first of all, we must strive to harmonize our own strengths, which is what volunteering is about, in response to our emergencies or potential emergencies. There must be collaborative engagement for advantages. The advantage of ensuring that our communities are safe, that our seacoast is safe, that our lives are safe, and most of all, our nation continues along the line of upward development.
The CDC head disclosed that the partnership would provide interns from UG with an opportunity to better understand risk management and apply the skills learned. An important component of the VERT program is Community-Based Disaster Risk Management, CBDRM. The CBDRM training has been described as key to alleviating the effects of possible disasters in Guyana. To this end, the CDC hosted a training program at its headquarters to equip volunteers with the necessary skills before sending them out into the fields. Acting Project Manager of CDC, Anita Wilson-Lane, stated that the session was an introduction to the CBDRM framework. She further explained that the session will introduce participants to the necessary procedures to be executed in community disaster response.
The session is basically to introduce the persons to the community-based disaster risk management framework that CDC implements. So the session is going to be introducing them to the processes, mainly the steps that they would need to follow when they actually go into the communities to do community-based disaster risk management. So over the 2 days, we're going to be looking a lot at the tools that they would actually be using to go out into the communities, to help the communities to assess their risk, to do the planning, to build the community disaster risk management teams and what's not.
VERT participant Dr. Kwesi Sinclair expressed that CBDRM provides the opportunity for the development of a customized early warning system for communities.
This CBDRM can actually revolve to enhancing the capabilities of the system in terms of actually putting in place measures, whether it's to be doing with persons collecting meteorological data, predicting of or based on the prediction of when we're going to have extensive rainfall, the farmers will be able to understand when to start releasing the water from their fields out onto the landway, into the canals, putting systems of when drainage and irrigation cleaning systems, should be conducted. Because at the end of the day, what you would want is to minimize the risk of life being lost and changes to livelihood, and to maximize safety and security of the persons within that area.
The community-based disaster risk management training program for the Volunteer Emergency Response Team wrapped up on April 15, and volunteers were given the opportunity to put their knowledge to the test. The team traveled to the Bath Woodley Park Neighborhood Democratic Council West Bank Berbice, where they were divided into teams and tasked with using a specific CBDRM tool to assess their assigned area. Speaking to InfoHub, VERT participants expressed their eagerness to be a part of the exercise.
What we did just now was a transit walk. So we went about the community. We did basically a mapping of the community, and we visited a few community members and asked them about the disasters or any problem that they're experiencing within the community.
Once we can understand how often it happened in the past, so then we can predict or try to analyze or assume how many, the occurrence in the future, and then understanding that we can develop and prepare and implement certain preventive measures.
Hailing from New Amsterdam, Jadason Bess told InfoHub that he plans to use the knowledge and skills gained from the CBDRM program in his community.
My area in New Amsterdam, we are along the coast, so major problem here is also flooding. So that is a big aspect that I would want to take back, so we can be more prepared and we can have better steps put in place to buffer the effects of flooding.
The VERT program continued on Saturday, April 27, with participants being trained in first aid response. The exercise, which was held at the CDC's Thomas Lands headquarters, saw the volunteers engaged in an interactive session where they learned the importance of first aid as well as the necessary skills. The volunteers were placed into groups where they enacted various emergency situations which were analyzed. The facilitator of the workshop, Fayon Jordan, who is a certified first aid trainer, said while the training focuses on basic first aid response, the volunteers are being trained to respond to multiple casualties.
Well, basically the training entails everything first aid: bleeding, fractures, bruise, even CPR, as you could have seen. And we're covering a wide variety of things, even multiple casualties we're doing. So we're not just focused on individual first aid, but multiple casualty as well, because in case of disaster risk, we should be able to handle all of those.
The training was deemed very important by the VERT participants.
The training itself is quite a holistic one, in that we are exposed to different facets of the process and what it is to be a first aid responser. So far we've been exposed to different scenarios in which we could apply first aid, as well as the steps in which we should take.
So this first aid training is very important, not just only for me, but for everyone else who is taking part of it, because whatever we learn from here is basically we take back to our communities for a purpose, for a benefit.
The VERT program continued with the commencement of the Introduction to Disaster Risk Management course. This has been another edition of InfoHub Extended. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.